Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ashlyn, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm pleased to be with you as a part of today's social work session as a part of Ryerson's virtual open house. There are many sessions taking place not only through this virtual open house, but throughout the semester and the year. So we encourage you to check out our website for more details on those and sign up for any and all sessions that may be of interest to you. To start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Ryerson has shifted to an essential services model to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have put together a series of virtual sessions in order to share information and connect with you. Ryerson is working diligently to provide students with fulsome experiences while maintaining the health and safety of our community. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping Zoom tips. First, we encourage you to ask any and all questions. In fact, we have many faculty, staff members, and even some students here in order to answer your questions. So to do so, click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. When you do that, a dialog box should pop up and you should be able to type out your question and submit it to us. One of our student, staff, or faculty members will be able to answer it for you. If you are having any audio or video issues, you are also going to let us know about that through the Q&A pod. So please let us know through there and we'll have a staff member assist you as soon as we can. This presentation will include closed captioning to ensure accessibility. So if you do require closed captioning, feel free to click on the closed captioning button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Also note that we are recording this session and most of our virtual open house sessions will be available on our website at a later date. Finally, you can rearrange the screen any which way you'd like. It's not going to affect the way we see it on our end or the way other attendees will see it on their end. So I'd love to know who is joining us. So I'm going to launch a poll. Perhaps you are looking to join us next fall as a prospective student. Maybe you're a prospective student who's looking to join us a little bit further into the future. Perhaps you're a university or college transfer student, a parent or guardian, or maybe even a teacher or counselor. We'd love to know who we're speaking to. It's always great that students and parents and teachers are doing their homework and learning about all of our programs. We're super excited about that. I'll give you a couple more seconds to fill out that poll. All right, it seems like we got 80%, so let's end it right there. So we do have, it seems like a very mixed bag, which is great. We have some prospective students looking into joining us in the future, some college and university transfer students, and parents and guardians, but the majority of you joining us today are prospective students looking to join us next fall. So welcome. We're super excited again to have you here. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce, sorry, give me a second, let me remove this poll. I'd like to introduce Michelle from Social Work to introduce her team and to get us started off with this presentation.
Hi everybody, and welcome. My name is Michelle. Actually, we're going to do introductions, so I just wanted to welcome everybody, and we are really happy that you're here. It would be really great if we could see your faces as well, but we're working with what we have to work with right now. So I'm glad you can make it. I just wanted to quickly go over sort of the agenda so you kind of know what to expect from our presentation today. So first, we're going to do some introductions of the folks who are here from the school. We're going to speak with you about our program. We're going to talk about the School of Social Work, do a brief curriculum view. We're lucky to have a student with us today who is in second year who's going to talk about their experience of their first year in the program. We're going to go over a few courses that we wanted to highlight from the program, talk about field placements, a little bit about some careers in social work, the admission requirements, and then leaving some space for any questions that you might have. So to start with introductions, I'll just start because I'm talking. My name is Michelle, and I'm the Student Affairs Coordinator in the School of Social Work. So I work with students throughout the program. Part of my role is academic advising, supporting students, navigating Ryerson, being a check-in point, providing information, help with enrollment. Those are some of the things that I do. I'm also an alumni of our program, and I worked in the field for a little while before coming back to Ryerson, and I'm happy to be here today. Gia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So hi, everyone. My name is Gia. I'm a second-year student here at Ryerson in the School of Social Work. And during the presentation, I will be explaining like how my first year went down, any challenges, support systems that I had. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions if you have any, but I will be explaining anything that I went through during first year, and hopefully it will be able to help you out.
Thanks, Gia. Cindy, would you like to introduce yourself? Hi, Cindy, are you here? Would you like to introduce yourself now?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm working on it. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, there I am, right? Fantastic. Okay, you can hear me?
We can hear you. You're good to go.
Yeah? Okay, I'm good to go. Yes, I'm Dr. Cindy Baskin. I'm one of the handful of Indigenous faculty members in the School of Social Work. I am also the Associate Director for the BSW program, the one that you're interested in, which means I do a lot of supporting students, part-time instructors, curriculum content, those kinds of things. And I'm going to be talking with you a little bit later about some of our fantastic courses here at Ryerson. So nice to see you. Thanks.
Next, Valerie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, Valerie, you're just on mute. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Dr. Valerie Warham, and yes, I'm in space. I actually just started at Ryerson in this position last semester. I moved here from the US to Canada, and I think I'm going on like maybe 11 months now. Here in Canada and here at Ryerson University. I was born and raised in Chicago. I will discuss with you also our curriculum and our mission and our sort of our vision and our values and try to connect the two. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. And actually, you're up next to talk a little bit more about the school. And yeah, so if you want to just stay here, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, first, just an explanation, and I'm sure you already have some of this information. What is the School of Social Work? The BSW program does its best to combine theoretical and practical learning. So we're hoping that while you're learning theory inside the classroom, you also have opportunities to practice with in the classroom in terms of activities, as well as your field placement in experiential learning. And what we also do is to equip students with the necessary skills, okay, to work within the broad field of social work. And I think that's something that's very unique about social work. It's unlike psychology, where it's very specialized. Social work offers students a degree that can be utilized in many different areas. And the mission is to prepare graduates for critically engaged social work practice with marginalized populations and communities. Now, within that context, we're not just looking at the marginalization of populations and communities, because we have to be able to answer the question, why are certain populations marginalized? And if they're marginalized, who are they being marginalized by? So it's sort of similar to when we say, for example, slavery, or we call descendants slaves, that leaves out the relationship in terms of the power dynamics. So, you know, Africans weren't born slaves. They weren't, you know, brought to certain parts of the globe as slaves. They were enslaved. And there's a big difference, right? And social work is a career in which you can work alongside individuals, groups, and communities who experience marginalization. And also within the curriculum, we're not just looking at the marginalization, because that has the potential of trapping groups within the oppression that is experienced. So we're not just looking at the marginalization, we're looking at the causes of the marginalization. We're looking at domination, colonial relationships. And so then social workers would then, of course, have an interest in social justice. And again, we would critically even engage, what do we mean by social justice? Because typically when we're talking about social justice, we sort of then move from looking at the individual, right? Because we now begin to look at larger systems and the impacts of these systems on groups. Yes, individuals, but also communities, and alleviating the barriers to resources on an individual level, but also around larger societal change. And it's important to note that when we talk about the unit of analysis, that's also culturally influenced, right? Because when we look at what are some of the dominant cultural values that are institutionalized, there's a value in rugged individualism, right? And then some other cultural groups do not start with the individual, they start with the group. And so we're going to try to have all of those aspects included and interrogated. And again, our mission and our values and our vision, we are looking to critically engage, like I said, social work practice, research, education, that also entails sort of an anti-oppression, anti-racist lens. And sort of working alongside with many social justice struggles, you know, including using lenses such as feminism, queer theory, anti-capitalism, and what really does that mean and what does that look like? You know, disability and madness, among others. So that's kind of, you know, I'm trying to give like a quick overview, and I hope that that came across okay. If not, you can please can ask me questions. You can challenge me. I would love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. That was a great introduction and overview of the curriculum and program. Yeah, so now we'll talk a little bit about the curriculum and just about the program, sort of how things are structured. I noted that our program is a direct entry into social work. So what we mean by that is that once you are admitted into the first year, or as some of you might be applying to second year, you're automatically admitted to the social work program. So some schools, you come into the first year and you do a couple of years with a much more general curriculum, and then you have to reapply to the senior years or the third and fourth year of the program. So in our program, once you're in, you're in. Our curriculum is structured in such a way that you're continually building on your knowledge. So the courses are offered in a sequential way. So as to build on content of the previous courses and continually deepening the knowledge that you're gaining as you're going through the program. We strive to incorporate Indigenous knowledges and experience throughout our curriculum. And an important point also to note is that in the last 2 years of the program, we do have field placement opportunities for students that we'll talk about a little bit later on. I think we'll focus, okay, sorry, let me go back a bit. From the poll, we can see that there are students who are coming or who are thinking of coming into first year, and there are also students who might be thinking of coming into the second year of the program. So I just wanted to touch upon the streams that we have into the social work program, the BSW program. So as many people are aware of, we have a stream into first year, and we also have a stream into second year. So in order to be eligible to apply to the second year of the program, applicants will hold a social service worker diploma or equivalent diploma, and they will have either 0 work experience or at least less than 2 years work experience. And that gives you eligibility to apply to the second year of the advanced standing BSW. We also have a stream into third year, which is a part-time program. And that program is really designed for folks who are and have been working in the social service sector, have either a social service worker diploma or equivalent diploma, or they have a related Bachelor of Arts or Humanities degree. And so that stream is a smaller stream. And as I mentioned, it's part-time, and they all have different admission requirements, which we can definitely answer questions about. And I think they might be getting answered as we speak right now. So I just wanted to outline that, though a lot of this presentation will focus on the first year experience and curriculum. We can definitely, we're here to answer questions that you might have about the other streams as well. Okay, so if we want to take a look at the first year, maybe we should look at the academic calendar. It might just help to have a visual. I think that should link to the academic calendar. And if we open up, just scrolling down a little bit, sorry, it's already in the social work program. So we just scroll down to the first full-time 4-year program. Yeah, right there. Yeah. So that first and second semester is the first year of the program. And as you might be able to see, you actually take your first social work courses in the first year. So I was mentioning other programs where you do a much more general first year. Our program offers the critical social work foundations in the first semester, and the social work theories of practice in the second semester. At the same time, first year students also take introductory courses to politics, sociology, psychology in both semesters, as well as taking lower level liberal studies. Our program also has requirements for 4 different elective type courses. So the liberal studies, all students at Ryerson do liberal studies. They're, arts and humanities courses. Yeah, you can click on maybe just to give a little example. So like you're looking at languages, courses in geography, history, disability studies, economics. So a wide range of courses that are in the liberal studies tables. So in the first year, you're looking at very introductory level liberal studies. And then as you go through the program in the second and third year, you will take courses from the upper level liberal table, which are similar in nature, but more advanced and in the content and learning. Our students also take courses from a table that we call the professionally related table. So those are courses, they can be anywhere from disability studies to sociology, child and youth. It's a very, very broad table. And then finally, that's it, yeah. We also, students take courses from table 1 or a professional table. So those courses they start taking those courses in the third year. And they will focus in always on sort of a practice issue or a population or a social justice issue, as well as sort of interdisciplinary kinds of studies that focus a lot on community services. So those are the sort of electives that you'd expect to be taking throughout the program. And again, in first year, students tend to focus on the introductory level, lower level liberal studies. In terms of the curriculum in first year, I think I could leave it at that and maybe let Gia speak about their experience so far.
All right, so hi everyone. If you are just joining us, my name is Gia. I am a second-year student here at Ryerson in the School of Social Work. So I'm just here to give you like how my first year experience was, in terms of what I went through and how things kind of were. So for my first year, it was on campus, so I'm not sure how it's going to be moving forward, but I have had the experience of being virtual and being on campus as well. So I really enjoyed it personally. I thought the program was like really amazing and it was very interesting to me. Thus the fact that I'm still continuing with it. The thing is that I didn't have an experience living on residence, but I do know people that enjoyed it and they love being there because even though like you meet a lot of people in terms of like your roommates and stuff like that. But with me, because I was commuting to Toronto, I still did meet a lot of people in like my classes and stuff. And like one of the things I would suggest is really putting yourself out there, because I think that typically we're used to like being in like classrooms with like the same people, and like even in high school, like you're used to just being around the same people. But when you're in university, there's so many more people to meet, and like you just kind of have to put yourself out there. You start conversations and things like that. So in terms of challenges that I went through, I remember like for my first year, I struggled a lot in terms of grades, and it was like really difficult for me because in high school, I went from like, I had like 90s and 80s, and then when I came to universities, my marks were dropping, and I didn't really understand why, because I was doing like the same methods that I did in high school. However, that doesn't necessarily work when it comes to university. Like you have to find other methods in order to like work with the course that you have going on. And another thing is the fact that like the transition between going from high school to university, it is difficult because you're used to like these teachers like babying you, I guess you could say, in high school, whereas in university, your professors are teaching you for like a certain period of time, and you only have the course for like once a week, and it's like you have to constantly be reviewing it to yourself and telling yourself like, this is what I'm learning. You have to go through it and stuff, and you're pretty much doing it on your own. So in terms of that, like it was a bit challenging for me personally. And I think another thing was that I didn't really get involved during like my first year on campus and stuff, just because I was really nervous going into university. And I would suggest like getting involved. Like we have like so many clubs, we have like so many job offerings that are like going on, and you constantly get emails for all of these offers. So you're always being informed about them. And like there's always people like walking around on campuses and like wanting you to join these things and like volunteer for like help. And honestly, I would suggest doing it because it's a great opportunity. Even being virtual, like I'm constantly getting like all these like job postings and stuff. And despite being on like online basis, like I'm still taking the chance to like get myself out there and trying to like meet people virtually. And so for support systems, one of the biggest things for me was that because my grades were kind of dropping and I was really nervous and I thought that like I would be on probation period and stuff, like that's when I encountered Michelle Free, who really helped me out. And she basically like told me that like it's perfectly normal. Like it happens to all students who come to university and stuff. And it's a hard transition going from high school to university. And so like I remember I went to her office and I cried because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like everything that worked for me in high school, it's not working for me now. And she was just like a really great support system for me. And even in the main building, if you like search up Ryerson University, it should show you like the Student Learning Center, which we call the SLC. Even in that building, there's always like volunteers. There's always like these support systems that are like walking around with like, I believe they're like wearing red t-shirts. And so even if you don't know like where you're going around campus and stuff, like you can ask them and they'll help you. Like I remember when I didn't know where one of my classes was, and it was in a completely different building, and I was like, I don't even know how to get there. So I asked like one of the support people, and they actually helped me out a lot because they told me like the directions of where to go. They told me an easier way of how to get through the building. And in the wintertime, even on like campus and stuff, like it's cold. So you obviously just want to go through like whatever like indoor way you can, I guess. So like they even told me like that. And even like when you go up to like library assistants and stuff, they definitely help you out like when it comes to assignments. I remember when I had to write like I believe it was a 10-page paper for my assignment, and I was like struggling so badly and I didn't really know like where to focus on. And so I went to like the library assistants, and they definitely helped me out in terms of like what to look at, what resources to look at, what I can definitely find on the D2L site. And then, so moving on to courses. So right now, being in my second year, there's two courses that I enjoy a lot, which is preparing for social work practice. And then the other one is called Power, Resistance, and Change. And so with those two courses, I really enjoyed them because as I'm preparing for my third year, which is the year that I start going into my field practicum, it really helps me build those skills and like what I'm going to be essentially learning and building upon while I'm there in my field practicum. In terms of the first year, so you do have like courses like politics, psychology, sociology that was like mentioned before, but you also have the foundation course of social work. Now, this course, I believe like I think it's like really, really important because it's essentially the foundation of what you're going to be building on top of for the next couple of years that you are in the program. So you learn about things like anti-oppressive, you learn about marginalized groups, you learn about like white supremacies, whiteness, like these are all things that, to be honest, I didn't even learn about in high school. I had no idea about, and I learned these things when I came to university, and I was amazed by it because I didn't even know like these things even like existed like that until you're actually taught and you're critically thinking about it. And so moving on to the second semester for first year. So you do take the same courses, but it's kind of like a part two to it. So you're building on what you learned from first semester to second semester. And so from going from first semester to second semester, you do find it a little bit easier because you're getting the hang of things. You're getting more into the program. You're getting like, you're critically thinking as to like what your professors want you to like do and like think about. And so moving on to like the second semester. So during that time, like I felt like it was a lot more easier for me because I knew what was kind of expected. I knew that each professor is not going to want the same content. Each professor is going to want different content. Whereas in high school, like, you know, if you write like a 5-page paragraph, teachers are going to be like, okay, like your writing is like good, whatever. It's like this format that they want it to be. However, in university, that's not really how it works. It's what the professor wants. And you kind of have to meet what they want in order to get good grades. So for second semester, during first year, that's when like I realized that like that's when I was getting the hang of things and stuff. And for the social work foundations part 2, that's when I found that I was really using like what I learned first semester into second year or second semester, sorry. And so it made things a lot more easier because it was still like in my mind, and like I would kind of review my notes once I was like done learning about them. And then like it would make it a lot more easier for me to like build on what I just kind of learned. So during second semester, that's when I realized that like things were like certain things were working for me, but certain things weren't in terms of like strategies that I used in high school or strategies that I used in first semester. And then during like the first year as well, like again, like I didn't really volunteer or anything, but I did try and put myself out there in terms of making new friends because, you know, going from high school to university, like, I mean, you can have a lot of friends there, but like when it comes to university, I would say put yourself out there, get to know new people, get to know their experiences, get to know where they're coming from and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that you'll have like a great experience being in this program because you not only get like 2 years of full experience in the program, like the practice, but you also build on everything that you started with during first year. And I think it's a great opportunity for students to really learn about things that, you know, people don't typically think about. So yeah, in terms of like any advice I would give you, it would just be have fun with the program. Like, honestly, it's enjoyable. I think it's really interesting. I think it's an amazing program. And I have been passionate about social work ever since I was in high school. And I'm so happy that I chose to go to Ryerson more than any other school, to be honest, because being at Ryerson, it's a happy feeling. It's an enjoyable feeling. Like every professor I have had, like they're very understandable. They know what students go through. Like if you need extensions, they will provide it for you, and they're willing to help you. Like even when you go to their office hours and talk to them one-on-one, like they really do help you. And like even with any support systems that you need, like Professor Free like really helped me a lot during my first year. So definitely I would suggest like going into the social work program here at Ryerson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gia. That was awesome. Thank you. Wow, thanks. So next, Valerie and Cindy are going to each talk about a couple of the courses that we sort of thought would be good ones to highlight. So I see Cindy. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'm up. So Gia said a little bit about the first year course, Critical Social Work Foundations. That's the one that you take in the fall, right when you enter the program. It's a good one, needless to say. It gives you a lot of new information, like Gia explained, around opening your mind to the reality of the way things are for a lot of people and why that is so. So what you do is you start to develop your analytical skills in understanding what social work is, how is it different from other professional helping. You get introduced to the challenges of power dynamics and of course about social justice. So you're learning about what is social work, where did it come from? What did it look like at the beginning? How has it evolved to today? And then, of course, all those major pieces that Gia spoke around in terms of anti-oppression, marginalization, etc. I like it. It's a course I've taught a number of times, and it's rather fun and interesting. Okay, over to you, Valerie.
Transformative social work practice. Okay, this is a quite interesting course because here you're learning theory and you're applying the theory and the approaches while you practice, right? Because you'll have simulated practice experience where we actually have actors come and sort of provide students with sort of the mock experience of actually how would they apply the different approaches to these simulated experiences. So students will know that, okay, this is a topic about, I don't know, you can think of a topic like working with Vietnamese mother, and maybe the issue is related to depression or interpersonal violence, but that's all you will know. And so you would actually then you'll have this exercise in class where you're actually meeting with the actor, and they're really great actors. And so you're going to be doing this sort of extemporaneously while you're actually meeting with, say, this individual family, and you're applying these approaches at that time. So you're getting, this is where theory meets practice. And these approaches would, of course, include anti-oppression, anti-racism, anti-capitalism, and all of the other areas that that are included in the curriculum and in our mission and vision. Thank you.
Okay, back over to me. This is the third course that we're going to highlight for you. By the way, all of these three courses that Valerie and I are speaking about are required courses, meaning that every student who comes through the social work program has to take these three courses. So the last one I'm going to talk about is called Indigenous Approaches to Social Work. And of course, it's my personal favorite, just because of who I am and the fact that I created the course. So what happens there is we look at the importance of worldviews, perspectives, the lenses through which Indigenous people look at the world. We talk about identity. What does that mean to Indigenous peoples? Why it's so important. We talk about the values of Indigenous peoples as well, which of course values are critical to what we do in social work. So we learn about values as well. But you're also looking at yourself in this course, which is how most of our courses are set up also. So we're looking at yourself in terms of your values, your attitudes, behaviors, your biases and assumptions. And we look at, busting open those myths that a lot of people have heard throughout their growing up. And we also look at how providing services for Indigenous people may look different in some cases. So how do you take that up? And we talk about various roles of social workers within working with Indigenous peoples, such as what it is to be a helper, a healer, an ally. So we take up all of these different kinds of roles as well. I love that course.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, it's an awesome course. The other kind of, I would say, highlights of our program is the field practicum component. So just to touch on folks that come into advanced standing with a diploma, because we're talking again more about sort of the full 4-year experience. But for folks with diplomas, you actually get credit for one of the field placements. But people who come into first year will complete 2 field placements in the last 2 years of the program. The courses that we just talked about really prepare you to be ready for your first experience in the field for some of you. Students are in the field in third year for a total of 336 hours. And then in 4th year for 364 hours. So you're doing a total of 700 field practicum hours. A lot of students, the majority of students will complete their field placements locally, so in the Greater Toronto area. However, there are also opportunities if students want to do their placement internationally in another province. So those are the other two. the placement experience is a very structured learning experience. So you are placed in an organization that you, like in the field, that you stay with for the entire academic year. So from September all the way through to April. And you are set up with a field instructor who is like a mentor who oversees your learning. You work within a learning plan that helps you to follow through on the types of learning activities and experiences that you'll have that will help you to meet the learning goals of each of the field practicum experiences. At Ryerson in the School of Social Work, we have an awesome field education office that begins engaging with students who are going to be doing a third year placement. They'll start engaging with you in the second year of the program, starting to get you, support you in getting prepared to secure a placement, be ready to go through those steps, which involve interviewing, sending a resume. The field education office works with students by getting information from students about what they really want to do, what their interests are, and they match them. They work to match them with different settings in the community, and then support you through that process. Along with those classes that we talked about specifically in second year, really getting you ready to be in the field. Yeah. And I guess we could lead into, I want to leave a lot of time for questions. So the next thing we're going to talk about very briefly, or maybe some career ideas or some things you might think about being able to do with a BSW. Cindy and Valerie, if you think of things that just jump into your mind, feel free to jump in. But I thought about graduates from our program and where they're working, and it does vary quite a bit. The field is incredibly broad. This is a very brief description. So people work in child welfare settings, settings that work with newcomers, community mental health organizations, agencies that are supporting folks with harm reduction and substance use. People are working in palliative care settings, community health settings, larger areas of advocacy and policy work, as well as international social work opportunities. Some folks will go on to do an MSW. For example, if people are interested in doing more clinical social work or like working in a hospital or a school board, then you'd be required to continue your education to get an MSW. And just on that note, some of our graduates who have gone on to do their MSW, actually they teach in our program now, so which is great. Okay, I think Valerie, Cindy, anything you wanted to add, or?
Maybe just around also in the area of interpersonal violence, assaulted women and children, for example. Also the area of homelessness, as you can imagine, is a big one in the area of Toronto. So I just thought I'd add those two.
Thank you.
I'm good. It's good.
Okay. Okay, I think we're almost done. Okay, so again, these notes here are particular to entry to the full-time 4-year program. So a high school diploma and with 12 UM courses, and the main prerequisite is a grade 12 university level English, so preferably the ENG 4U. The minimum grade required to apply is a B. And other points of admission, just to touch upon entry to second year, you would be applying with your diploma, SSW or equivalent. And the entry to third year, you'd be applying with either your diploma or your undergraduate degree, plus your work experience. So that application process entails more. So you have to submit references and you have to submit your resume and verification of your employment time, as well as like a self-statement about why you want to come into this particular program. And then there's actually, just to touch briefly, there's a second kind of admission phase where applicants are invited to attend a mandatory foundational course before they're able to be offered admission. So you have to successfully complete that course. And within the B grade range, and then you would be offered admission in the following September. And I think that's it. So thank you. And questions and stuff.
Hi. Yeah, we have a ton of questions. I think this one relates to that course that you just mentioned, but this person is asking, are there mandatory classes we must take in the summer of 2021 prior to the fall of the 2021 start?
Only if you are applying to the third year entry, the advanced standing program. So that course is offered to folks. So there's you would submit your online application and all of your supplemental materials, and then there's a committee at the school that reviews all applications, and selected applicants then proceed to take that foundations course that happens throughout May and June. I think that is probably what you're talking about, and that's the only time you're required to take a course before starting.
And on that similar note, someone else asked, what do I need to be qualified for advanced standing?
To third year, you need to have either a social service worker or equivalent college diploma, or an undergraduate degree in a related field of study, plus 2 or more full-time paid employment years, 2 or more years employment experience in the social service sector. That's for entry to third year. If you are just coming out of college with your social service worker diploma, you don't have work experience, you can apply to the second year. So the only requirement for second year is the college diploma.
Great, thank you. All right, I know we talked a little bit about this, but the student is asking, what career paths can I go into with only a BSW, without the MSW, I'm assuming they mean?
Yeah, I think, many of the ones that we talked about, a lot of our graduates might start out working or might continue working, because community is awesome, in community-based organizations. So some of the types of settings that we talked about were working with newcomers, working with people with mental health issues, perhaps, maybe one-on-one, maybe in sort of community development kind of ways. The field is really broad. So if you think of any sort of population or community that you're interested in working alongside, social workers are working there with undergraduate degrees, for sure.
Great, thank you. All right, this next student is asking, do I need additional training after graduation to become a social worker? So I guess a licensed social worker is probably what they mean.
Well, once you graduate with your BSW, you are eligible to register with the College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers, or become a registered social worker. So no, you can do that just with a BSW post graduation.
All right, this next one is about placements. Can we have a field placement in a hospital setting in third or fourth year? Is that available?
Generally, no, because hospitals typically, not even typically, they hire only Master of Social Work. So they generally only take placement students who are in an MSW program.
This question is about what Gia had mentioned. Gia mentioned a probation period. What is that?
You want to talk a little bit more about that, Gia, or would you prefer I did?
I can touch base on it. If you want to add anything, you can to it. So pretty much the probation period is if you are not if you're pretty much failing majority of your classes, that's what the probation period is. So that's when, for example, Professor Free, that's when she'll contact you, and she'll sit down with you and ask you what's going on, why are you slacking in your classes, or why are you not doing so well, if you are basically failing your classes or not doing as well, that's pretty much what the probation period is.
Yeah, so it actually it's not something that happens a lot, but it's basically, and there's a lot of supports and a lot of steps that students can take before getting to that point, and there's lots of so as Gia mentioned, you could come and see me. I probably won't ask why you were slacking, just saying. But no, so seriously, if students if students are not maintaining a cumulative GPA of 1.67, which is about a C, it is a C minus. That's the standing that you would get. And what happens when that happens is that you do come and see your program person, and we chat and we come up with a contract. It's called a contract, and it's really like sort of doing some planning to get things on a better track. We talk about different supports. We try to we connect a few times during the semester and try to just sort of just try to get things back on track with students. But like I said, it doesn't actually happen that often.
All right, this student is asking, can I do international practicums? And if so, what do those look like?
Yeah, so there are opportunities to do your field placement internationally. And Ryerson, the School of Social Work, has relationships with, and I honestly don't know them all off the top of my head. I'm just going to name a couple of places where I know students have gone to a lot. And one of them is a placement setting in Australia that is a youth-focused setting. We've had students go to Scotland, I believe, Ireland. There have been placements in Ghana, and those are the ones that are coming to mind right now. But the field office is also willing to work with students if there are ideas, other ideas besides relationships that they have. It's just going through the process and making sure everything is how it needs to be in terms of legal agreements and all those kinds of important things. But it's definitely possible, and a handful of students do it every year. And one last thing about that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So what would happen is if you were doing an international placement, you would do all of your coursework, say this September through April, and your international placement would happen the following summer.
Amazing. Can you go a little bit into depth about the differences between this program and the Child and Youth Care, otherwise known as the CYC program? We've been getting a few questions about that.
So I can't speak in depth about the CYC program, but I think because we do get this question a lot too. And so one of the biggest differences is that the Child and Youth Care program is very, very focused, right, on children and youth and families. So you will learn a lot more about that population in particular. Your courses will be quite different. In the social work program, you're getting sort of a broader perspective, not focusing on any particular population. That's the biggest difference that stands out for me. And I'm not sure if Valerie or Cindy, you want to say any more about that?
I would also say that child, youth, and youth, like for example, one of the areas I think that is really big within the school is like child welfare. Am I correct, Michelle?
Mm-hmm. Within the child and youth care?
Yes.
Yeah, I think education and child welfare as well.
And the difference is, again, this is what I was speaking about earlier, is that some schools have a sort of a specialization. It's in, relative to social work, it's a much more focused, because I don't want to use the word narrow because I could, get in trouble for that, but it's much more focused, whereas social work is broad enough so that what you get in child and youth care, you get in social work, plus in many more areas. You are able to work with many different populations. So it's sort of like, do I want to get a degree in psychology where it has this focus, whereas in social work, I have this focus plus so many other different areas that I can apply and utilize my degree. It gives you many more options.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that definitely will clear it up for people who are tuning in today. The next question reads, is there a co-op program in this program? If so, how far into the program do you get a co-op placement?
Hi. So yeah, we don't have a co-op, and what we have is the field placement component of the degree. And one of the distinctions between co-op and field placement is that field placements are not paid. So our students will do field placements in the last 2 years of the program, but they're not called co-op. And one of the biggest differences is they are unpaid.
I will just add on that in co-op, usually that extends your degree by 1 whole year. Usually you graduate in 5 years instead of 4 years. The field placements in this program are integrated into the curriculum so that you can graduate within 4 years if you want to do that. All right. The next question is, for the work experience or field placement, do we have to find it on our own, or will there be resources there to help us?
Yeah, the field education office, they work as closely as possible with students. We're a large program, but they work with students to obtain information from you about what you're interested in, what areas you're interested in. They gather all this information. They also keep track of all these different organizations throughout the Greater Toronto area who are partnered with Ryerson to provide field placement opportunities. And they work with that information, and they work with to find a match that's as close as they can to your areas of interest. They also work beforehand to support you in terms of putting together workshops around building your resume and developing your interview skills, and they support students throughout the process.
Amazing, thank you. So we talked a little bit about some international placements, but this student is asking how many students are able to get placements in maybe a different province? How does it work to finish 4th year classes when doing your field placement outside of Toronto or Ontario?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you were doing your 4th year placement and you had chosen to do it either in another province or internationally, what would normally happen is that you would complete in 4th year, the field practicum course is a co-requisite, has a course that you take at the same time. That's a advanced social work practice seminar. And so ideally those 2 courses go together. So you're in your field placement from September to April, and at the same time you're taking the seminar. In cases where a student wants to do a placement internationally or even in another province, you would do the field placement seminar throughout the academic year, fall and winter, and then you would do your placement in another province or internationally in the summer. So you would leave it, usually it's May it starts, and however long it takes to get those hours complete throughout the summer.
Thank you. Okay, this question is a little bit more of a clarification, so I'm going to read it word for word. The student is asking, could I work with people in mental health with just the BSW, like in community or mental health agencies? And going on after that with the master's would allow me to become more clinical? What do you mean by clinical?
Those are good questions. When I finished, or before I finished my degree, actually, I had a little bit of a journey through my BSW, but I worked in mental health in the community-based organization for a number of years. And I know that a lot of our graduates are also working in community-based settings in mental health. I think clinical, it's interesting because I don't need to be the only person speaking about this either. I'd love to hear from Valerie and Cindy, but when I worked in the field office at one time, students would often ask for clinical placements. And I one time just asked a student what that meant to them because and they didn't really know, right? And I feel the same way. I think if you wanted to do more, how I think about it and usually talk about it is like if you were if ultimately you wanted to do more sort of in-depth therapeutic work, for example, you would be looking at going beyond your BSW and not just education-wise, like experience, training, and year, like maybe if you like building toward that is what I'm trying to say. Some placements in a hospital, students might think of as clinical settings, which they are, but you would have to have an MSW, regardless of the work that you actually do as a social worker in the hospital. yeah, I hope that answers partially, and maybe Valerie or Cindy, if you have anything to add.
I think you got it, Michelle. Really, I think it's kind of I think it kind of varies. So what I'll tell you is, I actually was doing clinical social work for many, many years while I was doing my BSW and while I was doing my MSW. So there are all kinds of possibilities that may not be obvious, but sometimes that's a possible way that it will work. But Michelle is totally correct that we are tending to look more at MSWs for doing clinical social work. And what that means by clinical, I think, is like Michelle was saying, it's like counseling, therapy, right? I'm not crazy about sorry, I shouldn't use that word. I don't really like clinical or counseling or therapy. Those are kind of pretty Western terms, but just because they're probably more readily understanding, that's kind of why I'm using them. But yeah, it's like going deeper, usually like individually, couples counseling, for example. It might be more around the things that I brought up earlier around domestic violence, assaulted women and children, things like that would probably be considered more clinical. Sometimes groups, if they're around those areas, are as well. So yeah, if you want to do clinical social work, I would highly recommend going on for an MSW for sure.
And I would just add that clinical skill set, a clinical skill set is not necessarily mutually exclusive from social work practice. Because even if you're working with larger systems, there may be a clinical aspect to what you do, whether it's developing mutual aid groups, whether it's working in terms of counseling or doing a biopsychosocial spiritual assessment. And that's what I mean about how broad social work is, because once you get a degree in social work, you will have a toolkit that sort of allows you to do what we call generalist practice, meaning you can go from one setting to the other, from one population to the other, and you will have that skill set. And that skill set or those skill sets would include a clinical aspect because of the intersectionality of the work that you do.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to warn the audience, we are past 1 o'clock, so I do have a couple more questions lined up to ask live, but just warning everyone that we will be wrapping up fairly shortly. This next question, the student is asking, how is placement being arranged during COVID?
Yeah, that's interesting. And this year, placements have been remote. And I don't know if there's any more to say about that, but for sure, I don't know what the future brings, but for the fall and winter of this year, all placements at Ryerson through social work are being offered remotely.
Thank you. Okay, this student is asking, can I become a CYC or family social worker with the CYC program, or would you still recommend taking the social work program?
Social workers definitely work with children, youth, and families, like 100%. Lots of students come into this program because that's an area of interest for them. So just one thing, that the first part of the question was, could you be a social worker with a CYC degree? And that answer would be no. You would, in order to call yourself a social worker, you have to have you have to be able to register with the College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. So I guess to kind of wrap that question up a little bit, I think that there's overlap in the work that social workers and CYC workers might do with that within those communities, right, of children, family, and youth. And I think what Valerie was saying very well was that the differences are is the broader scope of the focus of the curriculum in the social work program. Sometimes social workers work on teams with CYW or CYC workers as well, to support a youth or family. So there's some overlap in terms of the work.
And I just want to be clear, because I know that definitely when I was in high school, a lot of terms were like unfamiliar to me. And when we say like the College of Social Workers, what we mean is like this governing, it's like a group, it's like a governing party to be able to call yourself a social worker. We're not referring to necessarily like a school per se.
Thank you.
No, it's I was definitely unaware of that when I was in high school, so maybe if someone else might be too. All right. If I want to be a child counselor, would a BSW be a good place to start?
Yes, I would say so. It's definitely a good place to start. Yeah.
All right.
Can I just quickly add, we actually have faculty within the School of Social Work who actually specialize, or their research is actually focused on child welfare and some of these other areas.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing to hear. We have two more, and then we're going to wrap up. Is in the social work program, what is considered a failing mark?
So a failing mark at Ryerson in general is anything below 50. So anything above 50 is a pass. In social work, there is something that's called a graduation variation, which means by the time you are ready to graduate, in the average of all of your mandatory social work courses has to be equal to it's a C grade. And sometimes that gets confusing with what's a pass, but a pass is anything above 50% at Ryerson.
And like everyone has mentioned, there are so many support systems in place, not only in Ryerson, but within the program. So if you see your marks maybe not being as strong as you'd like them to be, do not fret. Go talk to your professors. They can help you connect with those resources in order to avoid a failing mark. All right, here we go. Last question for the live Q&A. This student is looking into going into hospital social work. Are there any courses required, like some sciences, in order for me to pursue something like that? Are there courses maybe within the program we can also add that would be related to that?
No, I wouldn't say that in order to be hired within a hospital setting that there would be particular courses. You would be looking at, like we said, definitely going to graduate school or getting your Master of Social Work, which would tend not to have a lot of science either. So no, you wouldn't need science in your background to work in a hospital setting. And courses in the program that might be related, I think that all of the courses are going to be like helping you develop knowledge and skills that you need going anywhere. So be that hospitals, be that community, be that, advocacy work. I think that there isn't a particular course that's going to say like a hospital social work 101, but everything that you're doing in the program is helping you develop the skills you will need and that you can further develop to do the work you want to do.
And I'm not sure what the situation is for that student, but if you're just generally interested in, say, science, you can look at our minors list and potentially take a minor in science. One of the benefits of Ryerson is that you can take any minor with almost every single major. So there's that. So I would like to just thank everyone, Michelle, Valerie, Cindy, and everyone on the back end for answering questions, and Gia as well, our student who came in and spoke. And for this amazing session and presentation, I'd like to welcome everyone tuning in to check out our other virtual offerings throughout the year. We hope to see you at all of those. And on behalf of Ryerson University, thank you again for joining us. I hope you have the rest of a great day. Thanks, everyone.